If you have ever semi-regularly attended church or Sunday school, I bet you have heard the gospel story of the Good Samaritan and of the female disciples, Martha and Mary. The story begins like this. An expert on the law said to Jesus, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit everlasting life?" Jesus answered, "What's written in the law?" The expert replied, "You must love the Most High God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and your neighbor as yourself." Jesus said, "Do this and you will live." But the expert pressed Jesus further, "And just who is my neighbor?" Thursday, February 11th, 10 days ago. Tulsa police are working to identify a homeless man who was found dead in freezing temperatures. The body of the man, in his late 70s, was found lying in a sleeping bag in downtown Tulsa, near West Archer Street and North Denver Avenue. You must love God and neighbor as yourself, Jesus said, but the expert pressed, "Just who is my neighbor?" Friday, February 12th, 9 days ago. Batch called me at 8:48 p.m. He had just learned about an LGBTQ couple from south of the border who was in Oklahoma City with a 2-year-old child and in desperate need of food, diapers, and money. One of the adults is trans, and thus they had been afraid and not known whom they could trust to help and not harm them. Batch said one of the pastors at the Disciples Church had more information. We hung up. I called Pastor Mary. She gave me the number for a woman at Freedom, Oklahoma, who was the main contact with this couple. One hang-up was that a translator hadn't been found yet, and we weren't sure how to best support this family and their needs. I called Freedom, Oklahoma. Batch's wife, Pat, called Mosaic United Methodist Church to find out what support they could lend. The next morning, Batch met the lady from Freedom, Oklahoma at our church and gave her a box of food from the volunteer office and collected cash. Other organizations were donating diapers and going to help out with rent and or utilities. You must love God and neighbor as yourself, Jesus said, but the expert pressed, "Just who is my neighbor?" Sunday, February 14th, 7 days ago. My Facebook friend Mark posted on his wall, "Emergency. Does anyone who lives near Southwest 24th and Agnew have a small electric heater or two? We can get to a Guatemalan family trying to survive the cold in a mostly unheated garage apartment. We need to get them water for cooking and drinking too. Their pipes are frozen." And reading the 20 comments below this post, multiple people offered help and met the needs of this family. You must love God and neighbor as yourself, Jesus said, but the expert pressed, "Just who is my neighbor?" Monday, February 15th, 6 days ago. With few options, a cannabis lounge in Wagner, Oklahoma became the town's only shelter for the homeless during the deep freeze. Bud's Lounge on Main Street began offering shelter and warming services as well as food, clothing, and blankets to those in need on Saturday, after a discussion on the town's Facebook page raised the issue of what was being done to help the town's homeless population. Since Saturday, the Cannabis Lounge has provided overnight shelter to 9 people and provided food care packages, clothing, and blankets to a total of 24 people experiencing homelessness, including 7 children. About 20 people per day use the warming station, and some people who are not homeless but are poor have also come by to get needed supplies donated by the community. You must love God and neighbor as yourself, Jesus said, but the expert pressed, "Just who is my neighbor?" Wednesday, February 17th, 4 days ago. Oklahoma City officials say a man in his 50s lost his life after being caught outside in the freezing temperatures and the winter weather. You must love God and neighbor as yourself, Jesus said, but the expert pressed, "Just who is my neighbor?" Also Wednesday, February 17th, 4 days ago. Our church member Alex posted on his Facebook page, "My car is taller than Gabe's and has an easier time with the snow. Despite this, we still got stuck while I was driving him home from work. He was pushing and my wheels were just spinning uselessly. A gold sedan starts coming down this road, which is a somewhat isolated road, and the driver sees us. He slows, makes sure I see him, and raises one finger at me to say, 'Wait.' He turns down a nearby road and puts on his hazards to park since he was in the street. Gabe saw none of this and came to my window to update me on what he was seeing while he pushed. I said, 'That guy is coming to help.' A moment later, said guy opens his door and jogs over and has me push down on the pedal to see what wheels had some traction and which ones didn't. He then told me what to do and soon had us out of the drift. I thanked him. He seemed so happy to help, and Gabe called him a guardian angel as we drove the rest of the way home." You must love God and neighbor as yourself, Jesus said. But the expert pressed, just who is my neighbor? Thursday, February 18th, 3 days ago. A church member, Ellie Robinson, invited me to join a newly formed Facebook group called Oklahoma Winter Recovery, which already had 8.9 thousand members. I clicked accept and read the description of the group. It read, "Two kinds of people in this group. You're either stuck and need help getting out, or you want to help people get unstuck. If you are stuck, post up where you are. If you are looking to go get people unstuck, just watch the group and wait for someone to post up the needed help." I scrolled down to see post after post of stuck people asking for help and regular folks with trucks they are very proud of coming to the rescue. Other posts included pictures of said very proud trucks just itching to help someone get unstuck. Many of the very proud truck owners were beaming with having helped up to 40 to 50 people get unstuck in a single day. Others without very proud trucks and who also were not stuck wrote posts such as the following. "This group is amazing. I've never seen so many people willing to help out fellow Okies. Guess that Oklahoma standard still lives on in the worst of times. Thank you to all of the men and women who have put their lives and vehicles in harm's way to help people out." You must love God and neighbor as yourself, Jesus said. But the expert pressed, just who is my neighbor? Countless folks during this storm have lowered their thermostats to 68 degrees or below, and have bundled up indoors to reserve energy in light of the rolling blackouts with the power grid. And even though we've dripped our faucets to prevent frozen pipes, we've done less loads of laundry and used our dishwashers less to save water in light of broken water mains for those who need precious water to drink. The Jewish lawyer asked the Jewish rabbi what he must do to inherit everlasting life. Jesus shifted the focus away from afterlife into the here and now. He replied, "There was a traveler, and I'm not going to tell you if this traveler was a Jew or a Gentile or rich or poor, because all you need to know is that no matter who is hearing this story, the traveler could have been you." So this traveler was going down the dangerous road from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell prey to robbers. The traveler was beaten, stripped naked, and left half dead. A priest, whom we all know is in the helping business, but who we also know would have been considered defiled if he had touched a dead body, happened to be going down the same road, but passed by on the other side. Likewise, there was a Levite, a member of the Hebrew tribe of Levi, who was an assistant to the priest in the Jewish temple and who also would have been considered defiled had he touched a dead or unclean body, came the same way and also passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, who was regarded as unclean, a descendant of mixed marriages from the Assyrian settlement of the people from various regions in the fallen northern kingdom, also came upon the traveler and, filled with compassion, approached him and touched him. He dressed the wounds. The Samaritan put the wounded person on the donkey, went straight to the inn, and took care of the injured one. Jesus asked, Which of these three, in your opinion, was the neighbor to the traveler who fell in with the robbers? The expert on the law couldn't even bring himself to say the word Samaritan. So instead, he simply answered, the one who showed compassion. Jesus replied, then go and do likewise. I feel we have an image for what loving one's neighbor can look like, but what about loving God? Immediately after telling this parable, Jesus entered a village where a female disciple named Martha welcomed him into her home. Jesus had already instructed the disciples, whenever you enter a town and its people welcome you, eat what is set before you. Martha welcomed Jesus and began preparing a meal for him. Martha had a sister named Mary who seated herself at Jesus' feet and listened to his words. In the Mishnah published in 1933, we learn that rabbinic lore instructed, let thy house be a meeting house for the sages, and sit amid the dust of their feet and drink in their words with thirst, but talk not much with womankind. By sitting at Jesus' feet, Mary had crossed social and religious gender boundaries. And Jesus supported her in the breaking of these borders. Martha, who was busy with the details of hospitality, came to Jesus and said, Rabbi, don't you care that my sister has left me all alone to do the household tasks? Tell her to help me. Jesus replied, Martha, Martha, Mary has chosen a good portion, and she will not be deprived of it. You must love God and neighbor as yourself, Jesus said. The model for discipleship is found in the juxtaposition of these two stories, loving neighbor and loving God. Jesus tells the lawyer to go and do, but he praises Mary for stopping and for sitting and for listening, for loving God. The life of a disciple requires both. In both stories, Jesus has exposed the injustice of social barriers that categorize, restrict, and oppress marginalized people like the Samaritans and victims and women. To love God with all of one's heart and one's neighbor as oneself means that one must often reject social rules in favor of God's kingdom. Go and do likewise. Amen.